Hey, have you ever talked to a tree or a houseplant and wondered if it could talk back? Spoiler alert, it can. You just need to know how to hear it. And I'm going to help you learn how to do that in today's video, so stay tuned. Oh hey, I'm Amy from Following Hawks, and today we're going to talk all about nature communication. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell button so you'll be notified when new videos are released. Okay, so what the heck? Plants and trees can talk to us? Yes they can. However, we humans are accustomed to thinking that the only way communication can happen is through words and language. But the rest of the beings on this planet communicate telepathically. Yep. Plants, trees, fungi, animals, and nature spirits are talking to each other all the time, while we're over here thinking they're not all that smart because they don't speak English or any other language. Don't you think it's weird that humans not only invented language, but then invented so many different languages that we have trouble understanding each other, our own species? Yeah, we humans like to complicate things. Meanwhile, everything else is communicating through vibration and frequency. We do it too, we just don't always notice since we're in a hurry to use our words to describe everything. And when I say that you can communicate with nature, who exactly am I talking about? I tend to call them the spirits of the land. The spirits of the land are energies in our environment who are connected in some way with the energy of the earth or a particular piece of land. Some of them we can see with our eyes, like plants and animals, trees and mountains, and crystals and fungi. Some we're more likely to see in our mind's eye during meditation or notice with one of our other intuitive senses. Now, I promise you, they are very much real. They just exist in another dimension that's layered on top of the one that we live in. They're beings like fairies and gnomes, Bigfoot, star beings, and even the ancestors who lived on the land long ago. And I promise you, they all have opinions about the place that they inhabit, which happens to be the same place you inhabit. So it's worth getting to know them. Now, when you work in partnership with these spirits, the feel and energy of your home, neighborhood, and entire community will begin to shift. Old energy and trauma can be cleared from the land, and you'll begin to see and feel the magic that these beings can create right in front of your eyes. Now, over the years, I've shared lots of stories on my blog of my trial and error method of nature communication. For a decade, I meditated, read books, listened to podcasts, journaled, and stood frozen, standing at any number of animals or birds that crossed my path thinking, what are you saying to me? I'm guessing that if you're watching this video, you've been there too. But once I learned to speak the language of nature, the world around me was suddenly so much more alive. I realized that the trees and plants and mountains and mushrooms all had plenty to say and eons of wisdom to share. So here are my 5 steps to nature communication that you can use to interact with the natural world. Number 1, slow down. This was a message that took me a long time to hear and integrate into my daily life. In fact, it was some pine trees in my neighborhood that taught me this trick. Because nature vibrates at a different frequency than we do, if you're walking through a forest at the same speed you walk through the grocery store, you're not going to be able to absorb much. You won't feel subtle changes in the atmosphere or hear a bird chirp at you to get your attention. So start with going for a walk outside alone as often as possible. It's very difficult to be with someone else and also take in the subtlety of your surroundings. You'll be tempted to make conversation with your walking partner, so put your phone on silent or do not disturb so you don't get interrupted. Walk as slowly and deliberately as possible. If it normally takes you 15 minutes to walk around your block, make it 30 minutes. Stop, look at anything that catches your attention, and listen intently. Depending on your neighborhood, this might be easier to do in a park or on a trail where there's fewer distractions. Now, if walking slowly is difficult for you, spend about 10 minutes meditating before walking. Ideally, you want to shift your brain from the place where it's very alert to more of a calm and relaxed state where you can be in the flow with your surroundings. Okay, so tip number 2 is to tune into and trust your senses. We have at least 5 senses that we use to relate to the world around us, and much of our human communication relies on body language. Trees and plants and rivers and mountains don't have the ability to communicate with you in this way, so we have to learn to sense their communication in ways that might not feel natural to us. They're speaking a foreign language that we have to learn. And we all have the ability to do this, but some of our senses are more developed than others. For instance, you may easily hear messages in your head. It probably sounds like your own voice, so you'll likely dismiss it as random chatter or a story you're making up in your head. But that's what communication from the other realms sounds like. You may also sense communication from the spirits, like a warmness in your heart, or a flutter in your stomach, or pressure in your head. You may receive visual messages or see auras. You may even sense messages through smell. I do. Even if you think these things have never happened to you before, they probably have, and you just haven't noticed. And this is precisely why slowing down is so important. We can so easily dismiss the incredibly gentle ways that the natural world is interacting and communicating with us. Once you tune into your senses, you have to decide to trust them. Because of the subtleness of nature's communication, it's very easy to decide that you didn't get a message when you did. So don't discount your intuition or your initial reaction. When you first start practicing, write the things down that you perceive and don't try and figure them out or judge them. Over time, you'll learn to trust the feedback and you'll notice patterns. For example, I typically hear messages in my right ear. They have a different quality than me just having a conversation with myself in my head, but it took me a while to figure that out. So now when I hear something in my right ear, I immediately pay attention because I know it's a direct communication. All right, tip number 3 is to ask for permission. Just like you would ask a friend first if you can stop by and visit and then knock before going in, you should check to see if the tree or the plant or the rock wants to communicate with you before just chatting away. Some don't have any interest in talking with humans. They don't all have the best impression of our species based on their past experiences. So don't take it too badly if you don't get an answer. Just move on. But do respect their boundaries. And this goes for entering a natural area as well. After you get out of your car or walk out your front door, but before beginning your nature walk, just pause. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and ground your energy. And then simply say in your mind that you'd like to communicate with the spirits of the place on your walk today and ask if you have their permission. And then wait. Unless getting an immediate, exuberant response, it'll likely be very quiet. And this is when you tune into your senses. Give it at least a minute. A full 60 seconds sometimes feels like an eternity, so don't rush. Permission could feel like a warm feeling in your heart, a breeze that suddenly picks up, a sudden memory that pops into your head, or it could be as direct as a voice in your head saying, "Sure, come on in." Now, I should mention that some nature spirits will test you first to see what your intentions are before fully trusting you. You may not realize that's what's happening, so pay attention to opportunities to help when you're out in nature. We humans have the benefit of arms and legs that allow us to do easy but important things like picking up trash. When I first started going on daily walks to communicate with nature, I was getting a message that I needed to pick up trash while I was out walking, but I would regularly forget to bring a trash bag with me. So sometimes I would try and reason with that voice in my head saying, "Oh, I forgot a bag, I'm so sorry, I'll come back later and pick up trash." And every time I would do that, a bag would appear on my path. So for months, I picked up trash on my walks, scampering down embankments to pick up a beer can or untangling a piece of plastic from tree branches. And over time, my efforts were rewarded. I started finding feathers on pretty much every walk. And then one evening when I was traveling for work in a big city, I was walking back to my hotel after dark and I heard a tree on the sidewalk say, "Psst, come over here." And I stopped in my tracks and I thought, did I really just hear that? So I walked over to the tree and immediately saw what it needed. There was an empty bottle of booze leaning up against the trunk of the tree. I laughed as I picked it up and threw it away because apparently my reputation for picking up trash for the trees was becoming known. Okay, so number 4 is to ask questions. Now that you're in the right energetic vibration to communicate and have asked permission, you can begin asking questions. It's probably easier to start with yes or no questions, as the answers will be easier for you to perceive. You can certainly ask personal questions that you'd like answers to, but if you've decided to work with one particular tree or plant, you might want to start with asking questions about itself, just as you would get to know a new friend. If it's a tree I'm talking to, I'll usually put my hands on the trunk or sit on the ground and lean against the tree, because sometimes it's easier to communicate that way. Every tree or plant has a different energy, and the more you talk with them, the more comfortable you'll get with their different communication styles. Now, when I was in Olympic National Park in Washington State, I learned that the sword ferns have quite the sense of humor. They made jokes and laughed both with me and at me. I had never experienced that before, but there were so many of them, and each one I stopped and interacted with had something funny to say. So it's clearly their communication style. Also, keep in mind that the larger and older something is, like a mountain or a rock, the quieter the communication is. I would recommend starting with trees and plants first so you don't get frustrated. Most of them are just so happy that someone's talking to them that they're eager to chat. Just remember to tune into your senses to hear them. And you may not understand what they're telling you all at once. Sometimes it'll take me weeks or months to put together a specific message that they want me to hear. This is what it means to move at the speed of nature. And finally, number 5 is to say thank you. This probably goes without saying, but always say thank you and offer gratitude to the natural world for communicating and sharing their wisdom with you. You can also ask the tree or plant spirits if there's something you could offer to show your thanks. It could be some water or a song, or it could be picking up trash. Try your best to honor their requests so that they know you really want to work with them. Now that you know the basics about communicating with nature, the most important thing to do is to practice. Every time you step outside, you can take a few minutes to connect and say hello. The more often you interact, the easier it'll be to hear and trust the messages you receive. I've learned so many valuable lessons in my human life by talking with the incredibly wise non-humans that we share the earth with. So get outside and talk with a tree this week, or ask your houseplants how they're doing. And let me know in the comments who you plan to talk to. And if you're interested in learning even more about communicating with the natural world, come join me in the Earth Tenders Academy. The Earth Tenders Academy is my online course for those of us feeling called in service to the earth. You'll learn how to use shamanic journeying to enter liminal states to communicate with the spirits of the land, and how to do healing work in partnership with these spirits to help release trauma and improve the energy in your home and surrounding communities. You'll be part of an amazing community of Earth Tenders from around the world. Just check out the link below if you want to learn more. And enjoy your conversations with nature. Bye.